episode dropped. You know what time it is. Solo Leveling Season 2, Episode 2, covering chapters from 51 to 56. Let's get this started. Starting with the ending of chapter 51, which was cut out from the anime, Kim Chul has an inner monologue of denial, where he tries to deny the reality that is occurring in front of him. That reality, of course, being the sad termination of his whole ass team. And during this moment, he also makes up the excuse that the reason him and his teammates are losing or dying off was because they didn't secure enough food. But the problem with this whole ass realization is that this bum was the one who halted his teammates from securing any food in the first place. Let me explain. During the last episode in episode 1, I forgot to add this moment that was cut out from the anime, which would have shown how much of an ignorant and arrogant dumbass this man Kim Chul was. So basically, after Kim and his team departed from Sung's group and encountered their first ice bear, Kim manages to easily annihilate a couple of them, where after the battle has ended, his teammates get all giddied up and overjoyed from the amount of food they can have. They're like, oh my god, there's like weeks worth of food over here. You know, because like if they cut up the intestines and everything, they could like stock up in like multiple days of food, which I think it would be more than that. It'd at least be a couple of weeks, man. Like those are some pretty thick ass bears, like if you saw them. But no, man, Kim Chul, he's a genius with a 300 IQ. He smartly decides that they can't let their guard down until they've safely gotten out of the forest, aka no food until we've defeated the dungeon. I mean, come on, like what the hell does he even mean when he says until we've safely gotten out of the forest? The whole damn environment is like 90% trees, brother. And what makes it even worse is that this man is all over his head, man. He keeps thinking to himself that he's the only strong hunter within this dungeon that is actually capable of hunting down any of these monsters, such as the ice bears, and that the other team is already dead. Like, hello? Are you hoping for them to be dead? Why are you focusing on them? And why you have such a negative like output towards Sung's team? Like, focus on your own damn team. And it wasn't like he had a worried ass expression too. He's like, oh god, they're probably dead. Nah, it was like a I don't care for you. He's like, they're dead, freaking losers, the weak. He keeps having to, he also has this like high ass ego of like comparing himself to like others and thinking of himself as highly like weak. Brother, you ain't that strong either. Like, you're just A rank. That's not very high up there, alright? Later on, you'll find out. A rank is pretty uncanny, alright? It's not that fantastic. But, you know, this man is just a recruit, so he's just a frog in a well. You know, like those other greenhorns is what they call him in those other Chinese manhwas or like martial arts manhwas. So yeah, as you can see from the ending of the second episode, his plan of safely getting out of the forest didn't quite work out too well. Freaking dumbass, he really thought he was him. Now, back to the present, with him having this whole ass panic attack. With this context, you can see how him making up the excuse of a food shortage doesn't really work out well in his favor, especially when it was his fault solely to begin with. So yeah, I guess he wasn't really paying attention during his training dungeon classes. He was probably the clown in the back of the class, being all arrogant because he received an A rank. My man didn't learn. And to make it even worse, to further deepen the wound, to put salt on it, you know, my man Kim Chul was getting third-partied, man. As originally his group was fighting a couple of red yetis, but then an army of ice slayers popped out of nowhere, and at that point it was already game over. Just in case his possibility of surviving the red yetis was like slim or even there, with the ice slayers, or Hayaki with how some call them, he definitely stood no chance, especially with the boss there, who even Sung and his shadows had trouble with dealing. Oh boy, man. His coffin should have already been laid out there at that point. Like, he would have just been like, okay, just kill me please, rather than being used as Sung's shadow puppet. So my man made the wrong choice again. He made the wrong choice with the food shortage and with finding the right timely death for himself. So yeah, didn't really work out too well. I wonder what they put in his grave though, like when they made it. They're like, how this main Kim Chul died? Did any of the guild members actually explain that? I wonder. If any of you guys know and read the novel and that was included, I'd like to know, so comment down below. But yeah, as you can see, the disparity of the situation, you know, him getting ganged up on, his whole group, I mean, with like the red yetis and the ice slayers, yeah, that was pretty much cut out, like the whole thing, and him having a breakdown, thinking he's A rank, so how is it that he's losing? So yeah, that was pretty much everything gone from the anime. Now, on to the confrontation between the S-rank hunters Baek Yoon-ho and Hwang Dang-soo. Everything with the association guys stopping both of them was the same as it was in the anime, except for a little detail, which isn't really that important, but I just like to put it out there. In the manhwa, after both of them got their attacks halted in place, the shockwave of both like two S ranks being stopped like broke one of Hwang Dang-soo's like lenses in his glasses, so he just threw those away, but in the anime that didn't happen. So I guess that's a little realistic part in these whole fantasy manhwa action thing that they put in the webcomic. So yeah, I know I might be digging a little too deep into the details, but I just found it a bit cool, so it's a little detail that I just put out there. Also, the face of Hwang Dang-soo after admitting and wanting to kill Sung Jin-woo, you know, where he was like, it was just an excuse to kill a person. I feel like the manhwa expressed the lack of care and like coldness in his expression. In the manhwa, it was more like he's cold-hearted and like, I don't care if it's a human being or whatnot. So he's showing them as a monster. But in the anime, it showed him more as like someone who enjoys the thrill of killing. Like he's like, hell yeah, I'm a psychopath. You know, that's just what it looked like between the two expressions. But I don't know, what do you think? It could just be me who's like biased because I read the manhwa first. So I was like, yeah, the manhwa's better and cooler. But here, you can see from these two pictures. What do you think? Fast forward a little to where Kim Chul discovers Sung's group. His anger, oh my god, was just immaculate in the anime, you know, in the anime. Which I think was expressed much more better than it was in the manhwa, because with him popping veins and like marching forward with like the snow being stepped on and everything, bro, it was just so good. But with that aside, when Sung slaps the living dog life out of freaking Kim Chul's head, in the manhwa, Sung actually announces 4 before slapping him, which if you remembered, Kim Chul was counting to 3, so he was like, reveal the accomplice, 1, 2, 3, and then in the manhwa, Sung says 4, and then boom, just slaps him like 30 feet away, making the situation a bit more funnier in the manhwa. But in the anime, Sung does the exact same thing, except he doesn't announce his 4. So yeah, I just thought that was a little comedic part, which I mean, I don't know, maybe that wasn't supposed to be funny, but I found it funny, so yeah. Now, when Baruka, the boss, appears, and Sung realizes that somehow he's able to communicate with him, you know, he's like, what the fuck? I can speak with multi-freaking nationality of monsters? Elves too? Is, as always, better emphasized in the manhwa than it was in the anime, as you can see. Also, for the after pose that Sung does after killing one of Baruka's lackeys, which, you know, the dude was like, here you go, he wanted to duel you, and then Sung just immediately chops off his head. I'm sorry, it's just, again, much more cooler in the manhwa. Like, look at this. In the anime, he looks like he's pulling off the Michael Jackson pose. He's like, anything else? You know, because after he killed the lackey, he was like, and, or anything else, depending on the subtitle. But, let's skip forward to when Sung and Baruka have a one-on-one fight, as everything leading up to this moment was pretty much similar as it was in the anime, except for the manhwa conveying emotions in their characters' faces, which was much more better. But I'm gonna stop like talking about that continuously, because this is already like common knowledge. Like, I already showed you multiple times of these instances where the manhwa is more better expressed than it was in the anime. So yeah, enough of that. So when Sung decides to engage in battle with Baruka in the manhwa, we can see Sung clearly setting up the stage of Kim Chul getting his ass clocked and getting turned into one of his shadows, of course, as Sung steps on Kim's sword and propels himself forward while also pushing the sword towards Kim Chul. So he's like, hell yeah, I'm gonna turn this man into my soldier, so here you go, get the sword. I know you're gonna try to want to kill me. So this just prompted like many readers, including myself, to believe that Sung doesn't just outright kill anyone who hasn't committed a crime worthy of death, like instantly. He has to make sure, right? So that's why he puts them to the test if he believes that they would commit like such crimes. That's just like what I think. And as for this situation, unfortunately, this clown Kim Chul didn't pass the test. Plus, Sung could actually use this opportunity, like in the future, if one of the like White Tiger Guild members like accuses him of like killing like Kim brutally, he could be like, hey yo, I just acted in self-defense, just in case they plan on snitching on him, you know, just in case. But I mean, if they do, they better watch out at night, because I don't know, I'm just saying they better watch their back at night with Sung, especially Sung, because I mean, Kim Chul was kind of like a highly anticipated young talent in the White Tiger Guild. He was A rank, mind you, which isn't very common, but like I talked about before, it's not really the strongest out there either, so I don't know what high horse this man was on. But man, this whole scheme of sending the sword to Kim Chul was completely different in the anime. I mean, all we got was just one goddamn frame, like one frame of Sung like propelling himself forward while also pushing the sword towards Kim Chul, like one frame. I didn't even notice this while like watching the episode myself. I had to purposely look for it, and I feel like any normal like anime watcher wouldn't be able to detect it unless they have their eyes wide open with their shouting gun activated 24/7 and like looking through every freaking detail. I feel like you wouldn't be able to notice it because it was literally one frame. It was like at a low angle too, plus with the effects of like the snow going everywhere, like it was gonna be pretty difficult to like notice it. But thankfully I did. I was like, whoa, hold on, is this included? Let me double check it, you know, because it actually took me 2 tries. First, when I was purposely looking for it, I still didn't find it, and then again I was like, okay, I need to make sure it's in this scene. So yeah, I found it. I know it's a little tiny scene, but I feel like in the anime they made Kim Chul dying less like predictive. Like they didn't think Kim Chul would die by Sung's hand and get turned into a shadow, but in the manhwa they like made it more obvious because you could see panels of him like getting the sword, so you could be like, oh, he's trying to make Kim go after him so he could turn him into a shadow, you know? Also, this goes to show that Sung Jin-woo like doesn't have any problems with taking the life of another human being. Like my man clearly set up Kim Chul into getting himself get killed by like Igris' sword. Now, when Kim Chul decides to attack Sung, in the anime he announces his attack while he's like a good ass distance from him. I mean, it was to the point where Sung was able to look forward, back, and forward again. Like, hello? Why are you announcing your attack while you're like a good 50 freaking feet away from your target? What are you doing, Kim Chul? You're ass at securing food, at protecting your teammates, and you're bad at taking revenge too. What are you doing? Like imagine being like 100 feet, like I don't know, like a good kilometer away from your target, and you're announcing Song as you're running towards him like with your sword. Do you think that would do anything? And Sung obviously is taking him as a joke. My man didn't even do anything. He just looked at him and was like, okay, so back to Baruka, because Baruka was charging forward at him. So yeah, that was kind of like a joke to me. Like in the anime, I was like, what are you doing? But in the manhwa though, it was quite different. In the manhwa, Kim Chul did suffer the same fate. So yeah, that wasn't any different. My man still got and turned into a shadow. But it was carried out a lot more better. His sneak attack, I mean. It looked more like he performed a ambush. So, I mean, it was to the point where even one of Sung's party members, the B-rank chick who switched teams, called out his name to warn of Kim's like incoming attack. He was like, Song! Or I mean, she was like, Song! So yeah, this to me felt a lot more better than when compared to the anime where Kim Chul's charging attack looked like freaking garbage. Absolute joke, man. Oh, and one more detail to note, his shadow's level is 1. Kim Chul, I mean, his level is 1, and his rank is a knight. That wasn't shown in the anime, but yeah, just to point that out. Also, the reason that the boss like Baruka decided to focus on Iron even though he was targeting Sung first was because Iron has a taunt skill called the Shout of Provocation, which wasn't clearly named in the anime, but you can see it here in the image. Now on to when Baruka first gets stabbed by Sung. Even though in both instances, the anime and manhwa, Sung used his Night Killer dagger to pierce Baruka's what seemed to be his like right shoulder. In the manhwa, we can assume Sung used both of his daggers as the pop-up notification of paralysis and poison was shown, even though it isn't clear whether he did use both of them, as we only get to see his red dagger, which is Night Killer, piercing him. Oh, and the effects obviously didn't work on Baruka, the paralysis and poison, as he wasn't injured enough. So he easily managed to resist the dagger's effects, as the other many enemies that Sung uses on that didn't work, like the B-rank assassin and the spider. It only works after they're like 90% health depleted, so kind of obvious. Okay. I know. I said I wouldn't continue to talk about the differences between the manhwas and anime's facial expressions and how it's more better than manhwa. But I'm sorry. This just looks so cool. Like, look at this. After like when Baruka gets stabbed and Sung like trash talks about his team getting annihilated by his shadow, he puts on like a smug ass smile on his face with like the wind blowing on his hair, because when you're the main character, one of the perks is that the wind favors you. The nature composition changes everything to where it flows at the perfect moments. You have your pockets, I mean you have one of your hands in your pockets, your cape like flows away. I don't know how that doesn't get off your shoulders, but the wind makes it so it does not. So yeah, it looks much more cooler in the manhwa. And I mean, come on man, this panel just makes Sung look so trippy. The anime just doesn't seem to be able to carry that same slick coolness to it, you know what I mean? But with all that being said, I'm not hating in the anime whatsoever, you know, just to clarify out there for you guys, you know. I like both adaptation, but I just feel like I like the manhwa more because it does some things better. But obviously the action sequences, delicioso in the anime. You know, just to put it out there, I don't want anyone to be thinking, oh, this man is a hater. Why don't you just enjoy the show? I am. These are just comparisons I'm making in my opinions on them, you know? Alright, so yeah, enough of that and moving on. So after Sung manages to defeat Baruka, it wasn't shown well in the anime, but he actually leveled up twice. And as for the interaction between the rest of his shadows and Iron, you know, when Iron was like looking at Igris and Igris was like, hell no, man, don't look at me, you bum ass and whatnot. And the infantry and mages were like hyping him up, you know, like, yeah, we killed Baruka, yeah, stuff like that. It was pretty much similar, if not the same, except for the shadow, instead of hyping Iron, instead of it being like mages like it was in the anime, it was probably infantry, which is the knights, but it's pretty much the same thing, you know, patata matata, whatever it is, the saying goes. As for when the members were coming out of the red gate in the manhwa, some of the characters were actually crying of joy, of course, but in the anime they didn't really cry. There wasn't really much expression shown. It was just happy and like, yay, we got out of the red gate catastrophe, which would have been a catastrophe if Sung wasn't there. Now the interaction between Baek Yoon-ho and Sung Jin-woo was actually quite almost the same between both cases of the manhwa and anime. You know, it was pretty much like 90% or 95, 99% the same. Except in the manhwa, Sung carries a more colder attitude towards the guildmaster, whereas in the anime, he was at least a little more understanding of where the S-rank Baek Yoon-ho was coming from. So for example, in the anime, when Baek Yoon-ho explains the need to question Sung states that what he's saying does make sense, you know, because he wants to know what happened inside the gate, so he's asking Sung. But as the person in charge, shouldn't he be thanking him as he saved both of his members, since, as you remember, the S-rank dude wasn't quite, like, kind. He was like, hey, yo, you better answer these questions type of attitude, you know? So Sung wasn't really too pleased about that, but he was a bit more understanding. But in the manhwa, hell no, man. Sung was not having it. He was like, so what? At least 3 of your members came back alive. As the guildmaster, shouldn't you be thanking me right now? Like, damn! That was just cold, alright? I was just like, what? Damn! This man does not give no Fs. He ain't no pushover. He don't care if you're an S rank or whatever the F your rank is. He is pissed. And I mean rightfully so. He just like failed in extracting a boss, which took the combat prowess of 3 hunters, mind you, Iron, Sung, and Igris to defeat. Like, I'd be bombed out of my mind, so I didn't extract this dude. Bro, he would have been godlike if he managed to get his like extraction. Like, you see how strong Igris is, who's like Sung believes to be more stronger than him at this current point in time. Like, imagine if he got this dude who took 3 hunters to kill. Oh, my man would have been busted beyond recognition. Like, he would have already been S rank at this point, but unfortunately he isn't. So I can understand why he's a bit annoyed, you know. I'd be annoyed too. As you can see, in both cases, Sung's response is pretty similar, but in the manhwa, it carries a more negative connotation to it, whereas in the anime, which has a more of an understanding tone. And as for Baek Yoon-ho's approval of recruiting Sung, in the manhwa, he was more forward and pressuring of why Mr. Han hasn't yet recruited him, and that with whatever means possibly, he should make it so that he joins the White Tiger Guild, where we then also have an inner monologue of him thinking that based on his attitude alone, Sung's attitude and tone, he should be prepared to like offer Sung an arm and a leg, which is the saying that means it'll be pretty costly. So he's like, I'm prepared to give this man whatever sum of money it takes to recruit him in my like guild, because just his guts of like talking to me, bro, this man is needed. Which, I mean, I'd do the same if I was a highly rich and successful guild master who wants a strong ass member, especially when Kim ass was like freaking defeated. Like, I just lost one of my young recruits, A-rank. I need, if someone better than him comes up, I'd gladly take it. But unfortunately for him, he didn't quite step off on the right foot, you know, with his like, it's not an order, maybe even a threat, you know. I mean, it is an order, maybe even a threat type of tone, you know. Now, when Sung was leaving in his van with Han Sang-yi, the anime didn't showcase the details of the dagger, you know, Baruka's dagger, that white, cool looking, clean ass dagger. like the agility and like attacks and whatnot, but as you can see here, the manhwa does showcase it. And finally, the last segment of today's video. The scene with Sung washing up his face in the bathroom, or the scene, like what is up with these main characters washing their faces and having a freaking mirror next to them? Like Eren did it, now it's Sung's turn. Is he gonna cause the rumbling next? Like hello? But with this scene, I feel like it was a original because it was not in the manhwa, so it's either an anime only or it was from the novel. So yeah. Also, for anyone that was confused as to what he meant when he said that's the third time already, he was talking about the instances where he had to take the life of another human being. The first instance being Hwang Dang-suk, the older brother of this S rank who got by Jin-woo. The second instance being the B rank assassin psychopath killer with his purple hair and everything that he got the stealth rune from. And the third instance obviously being this bum-ass clown, Kim Chul, who is now our boy Iron, which you'll come to find out how clutch this boy can truly be. Man, I love Iron, and all his other shadows too. Now, finally, the scene with Jin-ho questioning like Sung's relationship or his taste with women, you know, being underage with Han Sang-yi. The manhwa manages to like convey the comedic aspect of like Jin-ho's expression where he's all worried. He's like, am I hunting with the pedophile? He didn't actually think that, but his facial expression you could see. It's clearly worried, concerned of the man he has a relationship with. He's like, is this the right thing? Am I doing right? Will I go to jail? You know, that's how it looked like. So yeah, I just found it to be a more funnier in the manhwa. But that is all for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did and would like to see more in the future, I'd highly appreciate it if you guys could comment, like, and subscribe. But that's all from me today, and see you guys next time. Peace.